Zach Merritt's a gun who's having a lot of fun. Should we run Nibbler to quell the Don Star and get the job done? No Big Maxi. Draper could run riot. Let's hope whoever comes in bashes and crashes and keeps the raging mullet quiet. The rains are here. Both teams will hope not. But if it does arrive at the G, it'll be a giant muss-off. Welcome.
That was good.
I did well. Welcome to the official, unofficial podcast of the Melbourne Demons, the DeeBrief. Adrian Horton with you. It's also the preview show for Rob Crawford from the Sash. G'day, mate.
Hello, mate. It's been a long time coming, this game. Bloody, what is it, round 18, and we're finally playing each other?
It's
been a
weird.
long way coming.
They don't do it like they used to back in the day. I think it was 2005, 2006 was the last time every team would play each other once.
Yeah.
And then you would go through the double-ups. But yeah, it's been a long time coming. What'd you think of the poem, just quickly?
Great. I thought you were going to rhyme rain with planes. I was like, here comes a planes reference, which is what I was kind of hoping you were going to go with.
No.
But I appreciate it. We're big on poetry on my show and songs. We encourage it. So, good first attempt from you.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that from someone that sounds very experienced in poems.
Yes.
No, I just leave the planes marketing to you. It's certainly not my thing. I didn't think the planes would take off at the end of the day. So you've done very well indeed. I think the AFL even ran it, didn't they, on one of their social accounts?
They did. The social account ran it after we beat West Coast, which, I mean, it's betting West Coast. But, yeah, the planes are flying is what they wrote, which is hilarious. And I think the page got tagged well over 100 times by different people alerting me to the fact that it had happened. So, look, it made my weekend, that's for certain.
Yeah.
But, look, hopefully the planes can be flying in September and not in the middle of July.
That's it. It's a big few weeks for both clubs, particularly your mob, just because it's been so long since you've won that final, and I don't want to shove it down too many Essendon supporters' throats that are listening on the Sash side. But just before we get stuck in, mate, now a few Melbourne supporters have said to me, they've gone, you know what, Naughty? They're like, I don't know about bringing on these opposition people. So Will Schofield stirred up a few last week. He had us going 2-6 in the run home. I copped so many messages. People just going, never have him back. Never, never again. So you've got an opportunity to either be Will Schofield or maybe they'll have a very small, minuscule place in their hearts for you. So the pressure's on.
Interesting. I mean, I guess it depends whether you ask me or not, like, what my predictions are for you. Like, if we're just talking about this week's game, like, I think I'll be pretty, I mean, obviously there'll be a bit of bias, but I think I'll be pretty fair in my assessment of a few things. But, I'm not going to get on here and tell you that you're no good, because we're firm believer of the Moz on the Sash. Murdy is the king of the Moz, and there's nothing more Moz than sitting here for an hour and potting your club, which would lead into a Melbourne win. So I'm here to be respectful tonight.
Oh, nice. We like to hear that. One thing that we both don't want, I referenced it off the top in the poem, rain. We both hate rain. Now, we had a big discussion before the Geelong game, and I was texting you. I was going, God, I feel like I need to change my tip. And you were like, nah. You got the radar up, and then you sent me across the hourly update. Nah. And then wasn't it 5 minutes before the game it started pissing down?
Yeah. As we know, the Bureau of Meteorology are full of shit.
Yeah.
It's a conspiracy by the Sandbag Union to predict massive storms when they're not actually coming. But yeah, unfortunately, it rained a lot. And there's one thing Essendon doesn't do well is play well in the wet, especially when you pick two ruckmans and three other players over 200 centimetres. Isn't the best lineup for that sort of conditions. But I mean, I'm looking at the forecast right now, and it's 0 to 3 mils, 70%, which doesn't augur well for a sexy game of footy. I could imagine the neutral supporter might turn off if this is a wet MCG Saturday night game. So
yeah, it would be a giant muss off, as I said. The only thing is, you got us in gather round the last time we played, and it was wet as a shag. And I think you were on the hill, weren't you?
I was there. One of the all-time weekends with Kingo and Murdy, living it up on the the lush Adelaide Hill. Great place. Highly recommend gather around. If you're going to go, just do it. Just, cancel other plans, book your tickets, get over there, get on the hill, get loose, have a good time. Obviously, it helped getting the win. I think if we'd lost, it might have been a bit of a different weekend, but it certainly capped off everything for us. But I don't know. It's funny, thinking about that game. Obviously, we won, but I don't know. Playing on Adelaide Oval versus playing on the G, I think is very different, and I think obviously playing on the G definitely favours the Dees more so than us. But, does give me hope for some players who may prove to be a challenge for Melbourne.
We'll see. You talk about getting to gather around. I don't even know when I'm going to be allowed to go to my first game in Melbourne again after having kid number 2. Shout out to Jasper. He's 5 days old. It's going to be it's going to be tough. Yeah, named after the great Jasper Pittard, of course.
Not Colton or Taj.
Well, there was a joke running around because we hadn't decided on the name of child, and one of the boys in the Dees thread said, maybe you should just name it after the first Dees goal kicker against the Eagles.
Who was it?
Colton.
Hey.
And Fee was like, no fucking way. But you look at the names, and I was running through them. She's like, boring, like Jake, Trent, Judd, Bailey.
Trent's good. Surely you go Clayton.
Clayton. Yeah, I don't mind Clayton, but I think
Christian even. Christian is a pretty nice name. Nothing wrong with Christian.
Not for me. I think Oliver was a chance. It was a chance. But Clary doesn't kick many goals. So anyway, Colton, we love him. He's got a bit of Alan Jakovic about him. And you'll certainly learn a bit about some of the kids we've been playing on the weekend. It's crept up on people that Melbourne are playing all these kids in recent times. But I reckon we jump into the team news, Roberto.
Sure.
So it's pretty simple. And we'll go to Essendon first. So this was interesting for me because a lot of Essendon supporters I've seen on the infamous Bomber Blitz forum. I've been surfing the interweb.
Oh no.
They're not massive fans of Dyson Heppel, who comes in for Jaden Laverde, who's managed. Can you explain that to me? Why don't they like Dice?
I don't know. I think for some people he might represent a dark period for Essendon, particularly sort of post-Saga and a lot of false hope and false dawns. But he's played pretty well this season. Had a real issue with his foot and ankle a couple of years ago. He kind of got over that. He's been pretty good this season. But there were sort of murmurs amongst some supporters who were like, oh, let's just get him to 250 and then, we can sort of start to phase him out, which maybe last week was an early sort of flag of that with him being managed. But look, he's the ultimate clubman. He's given everything for Essendon. There's absolutely no way that Brad Scott's going to push him out in a bad light because that's just going to absolutely kill all relationships. But I think that the issue is that because last week we played so well, it was really hard to go, who actually would you bring out of this team?
True.
Because you look at the defenders and you go, oh, maybe it could be this guy, maybe it could be this guy, but there was arguments for everyone to stay in the team. But I guess they've gone with Jaden Laverde being managed, which I guess looking at you're going to play a more mobile forward line, not too many big guys, this may suit that. And then, leave some of the more medium to small defenders in there. So I think that's sort of it. I think there are some people who just kind of want to move past the Heppel era, but look, he's still on the side. If we do win a final, whether it be this year or next year, I would love to see Dyson Heppel there that day because he's played through a lot of shit footy. He's the last player from the Saga era. It would be great for him to end his career by seeing something, may not be a premiership, but at least a finals win, I think would be pretty good for him. And then, 25 and beyond, who knows? So, yeah, I guess that's a long way of trying to explain why some people might not like Heps.
Interesting. Now, what's even more interesting for Melbourne is we're going in without a recognised ruckman. So Harrison Petty has come in. Max Gawn out injured, of course, which is great news if you're a Don supporter. And I know Sam Draper will be licking his lips. A lot of Melbourne supporters, I don't know if you've seen the debrief.
I have not.
It is going off. Is Goodwin lining up a new job? What the fuck is going on? Why the hell would we recruit Tom Fullerton and not give him a chance? He's named as an emergency, the bloke that we got in from Brisbane. It's a really funny one for me because it can only go two ways. It's either a master stroke, we play a mixture of Harrison Petty, Jacob Van Rooyen, Daniel Turner, Tom McDonald maybe rucking in D50 as well. And suddenly Draper's got 3 or 4 different blokes that are rotating through. And it's a bit of a curveball. It's weird, it's quirky, it's different, and it works. Or it goes the other way. We lose a lot of impetus with Van Rooyen not being up forward for the vast majority of the game, who's really starting to click and come into some great form. And then you've got egg on your face and you start thinking to yourself, why in God's name did they not bring in a bloke that could at least compete, is a recognised ruckman, blah, blah, blah. So it's going to go one of two ways, but I'll probably ask you the question, we take a step back. When you heard the news of Max Gawn being out, what were you thinking?
Oh, it was great news. Like he's, he obviously didn't play last year at Gather Round, and we know how Draper and Phillips absolutely gave it to Grundy that day and just absolutely gave him a bath.
Big indie spud, yeah, that's what we like to call him. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but the Max is one of those guys, and I know you had said to me, and other people said to me, oh look, he hasn't been in great form, but he's one of those guys who, it's, the old form is temporary, class is permanent sort of adage. And that he can turn it on. He has a very good history against Draper. Draper's great, promising young ruckman, but Max has always had his measure. It's never really been a big contest. So I saw that and I was like, all right, this is great for us because we should be getting most first use around the ground. I guess there's two things to me. The first one is, let's assume Tom Fullerton doesn't play. How the fuck is that guy feeling this week? That you're not getting picked over Petty. Like, how sad is this bloke going to be that you've been brought in? Hey, mate, you're an understudy. If Gorney's out, you'll play, but you might play a couple of games. Now's your opportunity, and we still don't rate you. Like, I'd be filthy if I was him, assuming this isn't going to be like a later, the old late change, sneaky sort of thing. My other point is that obviously, you have options around the ground. You try and work Draper, but the other thing that's going to go against you here is that Peter Wright chops out Draper, and he's bigger than all those other guys. And Nick Cox on the weekend against Collingwood, he also was giving a chop out as well as time going up against Darcy Cameron, and he did okay. Like, he wasn't amazing. So no matter what part of the ground the ball's going to be in, you're going to have an undersized ruckman against all of our options, which again, it's so strange to me that Fulton's not going to play. My assumption is there's going to be a late change. That's my assumption, that this is just a bit of smoke and mirrors, but I haven't watched any Casey football this season, so I couldn't tell you if he's shocking or if he's okay. But, it's a strange one. It's a very strange one.
He's pretty average. I've watched probably half of the Casey games. He doesn't set the world alight for me. I can understand why they haven't brought him in. I can see that. Will Verrill was another one who's really raw, but again, showing signs, might be one for the future in a couple of years. It's a baffling one. I think the other thing that a lot of Melbourne supporters have spoken about, and I think about this quite a lot, particularly this year, we have been dominated at clearance. Our centre clearance numbers especially, absolutely woeful. I think we're 15th in the comp for centre clearances alone. So suddenly, if you're roving to the opposition ruckman, it gives you a different look, a different challenge.
Totally. Yeah.
It puts all the pressure potentially on Essendon. But if you are Sam Draper and you see Max Gawn, number 11 for the Melbourne Football Club, not lining up against you this week, and yes, he's got him in previous years and done a job on him, you are licking your lips. Surely. And the other thing as well, having good chats to father-in-law Dave, who loves the Sash and loves the Dons, he hasn't been impressed one iota with Sam Draper's form this year. And his hope is maybe this is a game that can propel him into having a great end of season, running into finals. Is that a fair assessment, that he hasn't been doing too well this year, or he's just, where is he? Is he flatlining a little bit?
Look, he had a good stint out injured, so he had some knee problems and had surgery in round 4 or 5, I think, off the top of my head. So he missed a fair bit of footy there. last week was his real first proper crack at just being a solo ruck, because a lot of the times we've played the two with Goldstein there as well. He's erratic, I think, is the best way to describe Draper, because we've all seen the highlight reel. We all saw the goal of the year, and one of the boys on our show said that goal of the year was the worst thing to happen to Draper, because he tries to do it all the time. And look, it looks amazing when he does, and often he'll kick it, he'll take it out of a contest and he'll run around someone and snap it, and it often goes out on the floor. It's a point. But his fundamentals, his real simple ruck, big mark, quick hands, really safe handball that you get from, say, a Goldstein, just isn't there all the time. And I think he still has to work on his tank, to be honest, which is why, knowing those injury troubles, they brought in Goldstein as a backup ruckman. But I think as well as time to kind of manage his minutes through games during the year, because they weren't confident in him going, hey, you're going to ruck 80 to 90% of a game here. Like, I don't think they thought he really could do that. There's no doubt he has talent, but yeah, he just seems like someone who really needs to knuckle down, be serious, be a bit more professional, which I think is happening, but I still think he's got a long way to go to do that. So there's something to work on, but yeah, he's a long way off being a A-lister in terms of ruckman in the comp, I think.
Yeah, the other thing as well, people get too fixated on ruckcraft itself and what happens at centre clearance and stoppage. It's what Max Gawn does around the field. It's how he gets behind the ball, kick behind the play. It's how he grinds his opponent into the ground with his aerobic capacity. We're going to miss that dearly. Like, the other thing as well, you guys are just the land of giants. There's so much tall timber.
Yeah, that's it. Our marking against Collingwood was incredible, and it definitely helps, in dry conditions. And look, if we're talking about Draper, to his credit, his marking around the ground is pretty good. But we've just got so many options at the moment, because I'm not sure how many of your listeners would be aware, but we're running the two tallest wingers in the comp at the moment. So, there's three wingers in our rotation. So there's Xavier Dersma, who's a typical winger. But then we've got, on one side, we've got Harrison Jones, and on one side, we've got Nick Cox. And Nick Cox is a 200-centimetre ruck, and then Jones has gone from being a centre-half forward to a winger, and it's been awesome. Really, really good. And I think this is where he might play the rest of his footy, at least this season. And we've just got so many outlet options, which is great. The problem with that is that if you don't take the mark, it goes to ground, and particularly if the conditions don't suit or the other team pressure is really good, I think he can be found out for pace, and particularly on the open expanses of the G. I always worry about having a tall team, even though that is an edge you can get in the marking. But you do just worry about that extra runner at running away from contest, beating a big guy, getting away from him. And I think that's something that Melbourne are going to be looking to do. You're going to be going, let's get the ball to ground and let's run it, because
100%.
That's kind of going to be the game plan, I'm assuming.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to look at some key matchups in the front half for Essendon, marry them up against who I think defensively will take them. So Peter Wright, 203 centimetres, comes up against probably Stephen May. I think that's an obvious. It'll be those two going head-to-head. Kyle Langford's a funny one for me, because as much as I rate him, I just don't want to see Melbourne go with the Jake Lever tactic. I want to free up Jake Lever at all costs. In a similar way, you want to free up probably a Jordan Ridley, and we'll talk about your defence soon. But Jake Lever for me, no. It's really tricky, because Trent Rivers has to play in midfield because of obviously Christian Petrarca not being there at the moment. Does Judd McVie go to a Kyle Langford? He's giving up 6 centimetres. He's very athletic. He's got a great leap about him. I think Kyle Langford physically could dominate him and could potentially get off the chain. I want to free up Jake Lever, so I look at it and I go, okay, let's just run Judd McVie on him and see how we go. The peculiar one, the most peculiar one, and this guy kills me. And let's throw in a little bit of hatred and a little bit of malice here. If we want to.
Oh no!
I can't stand Jake Stringer. I can't stand him, and I'm happy to lord up a few of your players later. Maybe Zach Merritt, because he's an absolute freak of nature. But Jake Stringer, he kills me. Now, he is Essendon. He's working class. He's from the West. He suits your club down to a T, and he's a very good player, and he's a match winner. And as much as he pisses me off and I loathe him. And I'm sure if he played for the Melbourne Football Club, I'd probably love him. But he wouldn't fit in with us. He's got too many tats on his chest anyway. So I reckon we've got to go with Tom McDonald. It sounds wild, and Tom McDonald's had a great season. And people go, oh, he's wound the clock back. He's done so well. I think people forget Tom McDonald from 2011 to 2016 played as a defender in one of the mussest defensive units you could ever want to play for. And then he went forward in 2017, halfway through that year. Yep. So he was, unfortunately, just a byproduct of how shit we were back in the day. Yes, has he proved out as wrong? Definitely, because he's had some issues with injuries in the past couple of years, and now he's fresh and he's fit and he's firing and he's playing with freedom. I feel like it might be him. Now, I pose it back to you. Like Jake Stringer, obviously a match winner and an absolute jet when he's on fire and having a day out. Would you salivate at the prospect of a Tom McDonald going to him? Would you think, oh, this is one that could get off the chain for us?
Yeah, I mean, I'd salivate with Tom McDonald going to Stringer because I think if you don't play one of McDonald or May on Kyle Langford, he's going to kick 6 goals. Like I actually like he's the one for me that I think is the hardest matchup for you guys because he ran rings around Stephen May last year, and I think he's too fast for May, maybe McDonald, but then he's obviously got the strength over other guys. So I'm expecting to see a McDonald or even a Lever be going to Langford because he is such a good lead up forward. And while I quite like McVie and I've seen good stuff of him, like I think a very smart leading forward might get the best of a young guy. And I think if you're saying he's the one who's athletic, like you probably want him going to Stringer because Stringer's going to start in the middle often and then he's going to roll forward rather than just being there deep all along. And I think if you're taking away your tools from Langford, I think he's going to be going great. Like I'll take a young bloke in the air every time, and on the lead especially. And if the numbers we're talking about, if your centre clearances and the lack of ruck, if we're getting Shield, or maybe not Shield so much, if we're getting Caldwell, Merritt and Durham running out of a stoppage and as Langford leading up against McVie, like we'll take that every day of the week. I think you need an experienced head, I think, just to make sure he's not getting those as he leads.
It would have been Rivdog. So it would have been Trent, but we can't take him out of midfield. He's been unbelievable since he's gone in there. And we don't have enough options as it is. Yeah. Like we need to basically just run with Rivdog, Clary, Jack Viney in the middle for as long as we can. So it's an interesting one. Caddy as well. He's impressive. He's got a big future in front of him. 193 centimeters. Oh, I don't know. It's a tricky one. Like you look at Tom McDonald and Jake Lever and Stephen May, Peter Wright, Kyle Langford, Stringer, and then who's the matchup for Caddy? Like I don't know. I look at it and I go, I'm clutching at straws. Like, is this a game where we might actually have to put Rivers down back, sacrifice what we've seen in midfield? And that's the really probably worrying thing for Melbourne. Unfortunately, I think Andy Mones Wakefield, he's very slight. Maybe Daniel Turner goes behind the ball because Harrison Petty's come in. Who knows? But the thing that definitely will be concerning for Melbourne supporters is those 4 names, right? Langford, Stringer, Caddy, and just the height factor. So as much as we fucking hate the wet and you hate the wet, I'm almost praying for wet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be way more beneficial for you guys. Like Caddy did some really great things against Collingwood, and just because obviously he's essentially the 4th string forward after Langford, Wright, and Stringer, that he doesn't get paid that attention. And Collingwood gave him acres of space, and even when he didn't have space, like he still took some really strong marks. Beating Darcy Moore at times and a few of the other guys as well. Like the kid's got some serious talent, but I don't know. It might be one of those things where either you go straight with a young guy to a young guy, or you go, all right, we're going to back in a smart player like Jake Lever to roll off a young kid and just do what he needs to do. But, he's like, he'll be playing his 4th game, but doesn't seem like a kid you want to be just giving just an acre of space, I'd say.
And the problem is Daniel Turner and Harrison Petty are first and foremost, they're defenders. But
Play Petty in the back line.
but
Maybe you will. You might actually play. This is the thing. I would genuinely not be surprised if Petty plays in the back line and then someone isn't out and you actually bring Fullerton in so you have an actual ruckman, because that makes sense. That's a logical thing to do.
That's what all the Melbourne supporters are saying at the moment. But fuck, man, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's baffling, and it's going to be really interesting to see the way we actually line up at the first bounce, because everyone's bamboozled by the choice of bringing Harrison Petty in, Gawn's out, no recognised ruckman. We've got two guys that are meant to be playing behind the ball that are playing forward of centre.
Yeah,
like it's just batshit at the moment with Melbourne. The other conversation just around the wingers. You mentioned it before. Harry Jones and Nick Cox, yep, very tall, so 193 centimetres and 200 centimetres respectively, going up against an Ed Langdon and a Caleb Windsor. I'm really bullish about our two boys running those two very tall, but yes, athletic and speedy blokes themselves, running them off their feet. Like Caleb Windsor is explosive. He was unbelievable last week. Same draft year as Caddy. I think both players have got massive, massive futures, future stars of the comp. I'm feeling good about that. And I think we've spoken about this quite a bit, even just, off air and just the AFL in general. Having really good endurance, quick, fast, pacey wingers is what the modern game's all about.
Totally.
And I'm really enjoying the form that we've seen from those two players in Ed Langdon and Caleb Windsor, and I'm hoping that's just like a little area that we can get at Essendon on the weekend. So I'm interested in your thoughts, because I don't necessarily agree with the tall wingman approach that Essendon are taking, and I know you threw Dersmer in there, so you're rotating essentially a 3 into a 2 on the wings. I find the whole tall wingman thing just weird, if I'm being honest. Like, how and why can it work?
Well, I think a lot of it's about having an outlet kick, but two, also having someone who can float in either forward or back and impact a contest is sort of the main thing. Dersmer is our number one wing, though. Like, obviously, it's interesting that we're playing these two guys, but Dersmer is easily our best winger. There's no question about that, and he's the one who'll spend the bulk there. Often what you'll see is Cox might set up as a defensive wingman where he might peel back as an extra defender.
Got it.
Likewise, going forward as well. I also wouldn't be surprised if Nick Cox is a sub. He has been before recently, and whether we go the same sub 2 weeks in a row,
Hindy.
There's a chance that Hindy might actually come in and start, and Cox could potentially be the sub. Which various factors, weather and all that we've been discussing. So I think that's it. Like, Dersmer's the one who's going to be doing your absolute gut running back and forward and back, whereas Jones and Cox often we'll just try and set up as just an extra, like I said, an outlet kick, or someone that if you're kicking out, you go, all right, there's a ruckman on this side. Oh, this guy's on that side. You know what I mean? You're just trying to make it hard for you to get the ball out of defensive 50. Like, there was a few times last week where, you had Cox on one side and Jones on the other side, but Dersmer is the guy who'll do the bulk of minutes. And, I rate Ed Langdon incredibly, incredibly highly. But from what I've seen of Dersmer this year, when I think he's at his best, he can compete with him and make it a pretty good contest.
Will they be the same wing? What side does Dersman normally operate on? Members side or Shane Keith Warren side?
Dersmer's usually on the members side,
Okay.
and Jones was predominantly playing on the Shane Warne side, and Cox was kind of interchanging between either.
Dersman. That'll be Windsor then, because Ed's always on the other side.
Yeah, but all three of them had over 80% game time. So like I said, it's interesting how they move those tall guys around. They're not always there on the wing. You might often see them floating them half back and half forward, and just being a nuisance, which is great.
It's mental. Ed Langdon normally plays 100% game time, like high 90s, 100%. Yeah,
very fit.
Someone came out, I can't remember who it was. They were on this podcast, maybe even a few months ago, if my memory serves me correct, and said that Ed Langdon, from a fitness perspective, has been told by experts that he's the prototype of a marathon runner. Like,
Yeah,
He is a marathon runner. Like if he ever went down that path, like he would have been able to do it, maybe successfully. Who knows? But yeah, the beauty of Ed Langdon gets up and down, and hopefully we can have a little win there. But that is a fascinating battle because you got two. I wouldn't call them. Oh, you could call them small. Two small wingers up against two tall wingers plus a recognised winger that rotates in that three and is the predominant winger. So anyway, stop talking about fucking wingers, Horton. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Dees forward line. So,
oh no,
I might even throw it at you. So I had a bit of time on my hands when 5-day-old Jasper was sleeping today, and I was watching the Copper America, which was pretty feisty, and Darwin Núñez was getting into scraps in the stands at the end, which was
CC Colombia, CC Caribe.
Yeah, which was wild. He's sticking up for his family, apparently. Crawford.
Good on him.
Well, you remember the Peruvians. Can we draw a long bow here? Remember the Peruvians at the World Cup? Do we want to go? Do we want to go down that path? That little.
They were really nice to us, weren't they? We swapped shirts with them at the end of the day. They were lovely people, if I recall.
That little scrap. That little.
Oh my God! I forgot about that. Gee, that was just gone from my memory. I forgot about that.
Well, explain it to the listeners if you want to. Otherwise, we can move on.
I'm like, I must say, I had enjoyed a few of Russia's finest ales at this point of the night. I don't know what happened. Some Peruvian fan wanted to brawl me. But
he was tiny, man.
Yeah.
He was tiny. And I mean, that doesn't mean everything. It's, it's the dog in the fight, not the fight and the... Oh, no, it's the fight and the dog, sorry. I got that wrong.
Anyway, that was a long time ago, mate. That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
That was almost 10 years ago. Jesus.
Yeah, it was. But anyway, we'll move on from that one. Dee's forward line.
Yeah.
I'll throw it at you. So Laverty's out, which is going to scupper me a little bit here. So I had him lining up against this bloke, Jacob Van Rooyen. I'll allow you to do it. So who's going to go to JVR? Is it just going to be Ben Mackay? Is it that simple?
Yeah. I'd say Ben Mackay goes to Van Rooyen. Like Ben Mackay takes, the biggest option, the traditional forward. So assuming the lineup is as it is in terms of positions, and we don't see a Petty or McDonald there, he's going to take your deep full forward, big guy, basically. Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, that is the end of our chat. Adrian has a little personal emergency. He's had to run off. Things should all be okay, though. But unfortunately, just had to end the pod there. So thanks, everyone, for joining us on either the Sash or DeeBrief channels. Hopefully, it's a cracking game, and hopefully the rain stays away and we can all sit in some dry seats at the MCG and enjoy the footy. So I hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye.